Peace be upon you, friends. With you is your friend Darum. I ask you to support the channel by subscribing, liking, and posting motivating comments and an enjoyable viewing experience for you. Before Shin could complete his words, the huge man took out a sword that separated Shin's head from its place, causing his body to fall to the ground motionless. The huge man put his sword back in its sheath, then pointed with his hand, and a group of men appeared and carried Shin's body and took him out, leaving his head on the ground and Amar standing with his mouth open between the head and its divider. The big man approached him and said to him, "From now until eternity, you will have the sword and we will have the sheath." The big man extended his hand and put it behind the back of the woman who was with him and pushed her towards Amar and said to him, "She is yours, and her dowry has arrived." Amar discovered after his marriage to this woman that she was Yund, the daughter of Maza, the leader of the Dunes of Satan tribe, who killed Shand in his house, and her dowry was the head of the leader of the Saurim tribe. Because the conflict and rivalry between the two tribes over sovereignty was old and bloody, and neither of them was able to eliminate the other until Amar ignorantly intervened in the picture and prepared the leader of the Al-Sawarim tribe. I could not control myself and interrupted Dajan and shouted at him and said, "Are you a fool? We are fleeing from the revenge of the Yaram tribe, only to fall into revenge with the Dunes tribe because of Amar." Dajan laughed loudly and said, "My beloved, the devils do not take revenge on humans, so do not be afraid." I said to him, "What's the matter then?" He said, "The Dunes' failure to protect Amar from me was because of the olive branch that you placed at his head. This branch blinded his guards and gave me the opportunity to kill him, so they do not know who killed him. By the way, their responsibility ends with protection, but they do not follow it, neither with revenge nor blood." I said to him, "How did they come with you then?" And here he remained silent, so I said in an angry tone, "Speak." He said, "Amar, by marrying Yund, became the blogger of the tribe, and every blogger has an heir, and this heir inherits the responsibilities of the blogger before him and the protection he enjoyed." I said, "What do I have to do with that?" He said, "What do you think next?" I told them that you are Amar's heir. I said to him, "How did they believe you so simply?" He said, "Simple. The guards testified that you sat with him for 3 years, which is the period necessary to prepare the heir. I told him I spent it searching for a way to stop you." He said, "Don't be stupid and fall from my sight. Amar, my love, he was able to stop me and save you from the first moment he saw me with you at his door, but he chose you to be his heir and forced you to read the books in his library with the trick that you must mention my name, or else you will die. And when he was sure that you ready and imbibed in the craft, he threw the book with my name in front of you without you noticing, making you think that you had found it by chance. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't the one who suggested the book to you to read that day." I remained silent in shock. During my silence, Dajan said, "Did I not tell you that Amar is a malicious person? By the way, I forgot to tell you something else." I said, "Forgot what?" "Haven't your misfortunes ended?" He said, smiling maliciously and placing his hand on my shoulder. "The coming calamity is more beautiful. I forgot to tell you that the heir will inherit from the wife, so prepare yourself tonight, groom, and do not let us down." Dajan laughed after these words and then disappeared. I stayed at home, palming each other, thinking about Dajan's words, the disaster that befell my head, and how Amar manipulated me throughout those years. After more than an hour, the sun had completely set, and Dajan returned and said, smiling, "Are you prepared right tonight?" I looked at him and said, "Why did you do that to me?" He said, "What did I do for you?" What did you want me to do for you? I mean, the Yaram tribe got news that you are here and there are plans to kill your companion, and you cannot. They have to move from here to tomorrow. I told him, if I had known what you would do, I would have chosen death. He said to me, without hesitation, you would not have chosen death, and I am with you on the matter, and the Yaram group included me with you in revenge, meaning there is no escape, and I needed protection like you, and frankly, I am not pledging allegiance to myself. So I said to him, what does it have to do with you that the dunes protect you? He said, the dunes protect the blogger and his property, so I told them that I am your slave. I smiled and said, but I thought you wanted me as your slave. He said, no, things are different now. And see, when you have soldiers with you, do not let the faith fall with me, so that we will not be exposed. I told him, don't worry, I will treat you as you deserve. I got up and asked Jinn, how will I marry a devil? He said, do not be afraid. There is not much difference between our harem and your harem. On the contrary, our harem may be easier. I laughed, and I didn't want to laugh, but the malicious Jinn's words were charming. I say to him, but I have never been married before, and I do not know human women to compare me to them. So he said, do not be afraid, son of Adam. She will not come to you in the first place unless she is shaped like a human, so you will not feel any difference. I told him, this is not my biggest concern, believe me. My wedding night to Yund. The night came, and I do not know whether my feeling of fear was natural or unjustified. Is it the fear every man has of his wedding night, or a fear of the devil who will share the bed with me tonight? In the middle of my thoughts, a voice from outside interrupted me and said, get out, blogger! So I went out and found 3 guards with Jen, accompanied by a huge demon holding a manuscript in his hand, and on Jen's face was that malicious yellow laugh that I had seen on his face when I first met him in the cemetery. The huge man who was holding the manuscript 3 times my size came forward and said to me, we, the Dune clan, offer you Princess Yund, a companion who will accompany you until your death. I was silent, and I looked among them and found only males, and I did not see that princess he was talking about. Then the big man continued his words by saying, she will be under the protection of the clan, as ordered by her master, Maza, and she will be held accountable, like us, for any negligence or betrayal towards the tribe, and... He was interrupted by the voice of a woman who suddenly appeared behind him and stood in front of me and said, enough, Jassar, you will terrify the boy. The big man, who turned out to be Jassar, son of Maza, who was kidnapping the girls of the village of Salem and Amar, responded and said, but soldier, these are our father's orders, and we must deliver them to the blogger's ears. She smiled and put her fingertips behind my ear and said, I'll tell him the rest tonight. Jassar signaled with his hand to the guards who were with him to leave. Then he followed them seconds later, and Yund stared at my face, which seemed confused. She realized that she didn't want anyone around. I read it in her wide eyes. While she was fiddling with her fingertips that she placed behind my head, Dajan said, for him, do you order me, sir, to leave? So, a soldier slapped him in the face with a strong blow and said to him in a sharp tone, get out of here, you rebel! Dajan looked angrily at Jund, and I was afraid that he would do something foolish, so I said, you can leave now. Dajan left, with signs of anger on his face, and he did not take his eyes off Jund, who returned to caressing my hair while saying, are we going to be outside a lot? Yund and I entered the house, and she was walking around as if she was familiar with it and knew every corner of it. Yund grabbed one of the books on the table in the living room, opened it and began browsing through it. She said as she looked at the book, "You're too young to be a blogger," I said to her while smiling nervously, maybe because I'm lucky. Yun closed the book tightly, frowned, looked at me and said, "What do you mean by lucky?" I said, with a mixture of terror and tension covered by a smile, "Nothing, nothing." I smiled. I swallowed my saliva from the temporary relief and did not say a word, but rather stared at her while she approached me with slow steps until she reached me and said, "Are you afraid of me?" So I told her, "No." She said, "Are you married in your world?" So I told her, "No." She said, "Why?" I said to her, "I am still too young to get married. I don't know." She said, "What is the appropriate age for marriage among you?" I remained silent and did not answer her question. Jund went to Amar's bedroom and sat on her ex-husband's bed and gestured with her fingertips for me to sit next to her. She sat at the other end of the bed and she approached me, put her hand on my head and began to play with my hair again with those long fingers and said, "Are you nervous?" I told her, "A little." She said, "Don't be afraid. Let's talk a little, as it is still too early for the wedding to take place." At that moment, I felt like I was the bride, not the groom. She was in charge and controlled everything, and my only concern and source of anxiety was a word I said by mistake that upset her mood and took my life. I did not speak at first, as I did not know what were the appropriate topics to discuss with Satan, but the deadlock between us was broken when she said, "Do you find me attractive?" I said, "What? What do you mean?" She said, "I can take another shape if I like." I said, "No, you are beautiful enough." She said, "What do you mean by enough?" I said, "I don't know." "Why do you wait for every word I say?"